right, I think we are good. I think it's recording. Okay, so this morning we have Miss Kim Baumgartner. She was actually my former instructor for the SLP Assistant Program at Fayetteville Technical Community College. And there she taught us augmentative and alternative communication, which was a little intimidating, but turned out to be one of my favorite classes in the end. I learned a lot that I've been able to carry into my undergrad for linguistics, and I know for a fact I'm going to carry it through the grad communication science and disorders program at Baylor. So welcome, Ms. Baumgartner. Thank you for joining me.
Absolutely. Thank you for the invitation, and so happy that I could help.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so I know she has a busy day ahead of her, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with the questions. Let me pull them up. Okay. So for the first question, what drew you to the field of speech pathology?
Well, my journey started at Michigan State University, and I was a sophomore. And honestly, I didn't have a clue what I was going to do yet to declare my major. And I knew I wanted to have a job that was service-based and working with either adults or kids. I knew that I was not um, gifted with the skills to do anything like with a lot of math. Like high level math, Calc 2, Calc 3, all this kind of stuff. My limitations, I was very realistic with that. So I knew I couldn't do like a, you know, medical doctor or anything like that, like go that route. So I want to maximize what I was given within my gene pool and my hereditary and God and whatnot. And so after talking to people, I actually talked to a friend, and her major was audiology. And then she was kind of talking to me about the other half of speech and whatnot. I said, hey, like that is really truly service based, works with both kids and adults, has a little bit of math, but nothing I can't handle. And then she talked about the variety of settings you could work in and just how flexible it could be for your life and your journey. And, just it really met everything, all the criteria I was kind of looking for. So I started taking a couple classes and then declared my major by the end of my sophomore year. And that was a wrap. So that's just this convoluted way of how I fell into this job.
That's awesome. A blessing in disguise.
Absolutely. And my parents were happy that the other half was that, I was realistic and I wanted to have a job that I knew would have job potential, job opportunities in a variety of states and communities. I knew my husband's job was very transient. We moved a lot for the first half of his career. So I knew I needed a job that wasn't specific to, say, a high city population or something like that. If I was going to be in a rural community, I knew I needed a job for that. Or that would have job potential there. So again, speech pathologists, we are just so wanted everywhere, and the demand has only increased as my career has gone on. It has not lessened. It's only increased with the need for speech pathologists across the world. Truly, you could be a speech pathologist in Ireland if you wanted to. There's so many different places that you can work now, especially with with COVID offering us the virtual format and really kind of solidifying that. That's a whole nother avenue that people can go down that was not even anything that people would even think about back when I graduated, back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth. But anyways, so I hope that answers that question.
Yes, ma'am, it does. Thank you. What is your specific area of interest and how did you choose it? Do you have a certain
Again,
area that you prefer?
Yeah. So this is going to be another long, convoluted answer, which I think speaks to the field of speech pathology, honestly, where you think you might have what you're interested in when you first graduate, but then life kind of takes you on different courses. And because our field is so flexible and varied, you literally can investigate different avenues because you're still doing speech language targets, which I talked about in class a lot. But, anyways, when I first graduated from graduate school, I literally said, and I said it to my peers, I would never work in the schools. I said I didn't want to be a speech teacher. I said I wanted, I was really, I really gravitated towards the medical side, adults, neuro, love that, swallowing, all the dysphagia and stuff. So that's what I did my C's in. So when I first graduated my CFY and whatnot to get my C's, I was in the medical side. So I was in a hospital setting, loved it, did that for 3 years. And then my husband's job got transferred. So I still stayed in the adult medical side, but there was no big hospital where we moved to. We were out in the country at that point. So I worked for long-term medical care facilities, a rehab, long-term care, and really had to learn that whole side of the service delivery, the billing, the Medicare, the insurance side, and how that really kind of dictated rehab and all those rules. So that was interesting, and I learned a lot there. So I still stayed adult, still stayed medical, then moved to North Carolina and was in a more city um, population in Fayetteville, so it offered more opportunities. And stayed with the long-term care adult because I still was like, I'm medical, man. I'm medical. Like this is my groove. I know aphasia and I know neuro and I know TBI and I know, not that I'm an expert, but that was kind of my niche and where I was comfortable. So, anyways, well, then you have children, and working those holidays all the time, working weekends, all that kind of stuff. The money was great, but when it came down to it, your family time is precious with your children. And started talking to more speech pathologists that were working in the schools and looking at their summers off and not fighting for, Thanksgiving Day off or the day after or Christmas break. You have 2 weeks off and just all these kinds of things to make the schools look a lot more appealing. So, anyways, I talked to the lead SLP for 2 years in the schools before I applied because they would be like, I would call, she'd say, yeah, we want you, there's jobs open. I'm like, no, I'm not sure yet. So literally it took me 2 years to make the jump to the schools because remember I said I would never work in the schools. So
Right.
I was not motivated, but the school schedule was attracting me so much. So jumped to the schools eventually in 2010 was when I made that transition. And it surprised me. I did not give the schools enough credit with the challenges and the variety of caseloads and kids and making my brain really think and problem solve. And there's just so much going on here, and that has only changed too as, of course, COVID hit us and we have to
Right.
really pivot and um, do all that kind of stuff. And then, in a nutshell, you're still doing speech and language. You're still working with kids with TBI, not as many, but you're still working that. You're still working with, so many brain anomalies and different etiologies and things that make it challenging for them to access their school education and whatnot. So, and it is a team effort because that's what I really liked about the medical side was that just this daily interaction with OT, PT, nursing, etc. You still have that in the schools. So I was afraid I would be isolated in the schools because I was the only speech person in that school. That's what I had heard. So I had this different perception. So, anyways, Needless to say, my journey has gone from adults, where I was very adult driven, to now I'm working in peds and have been since 2010. So going on 13 years now. And it's still great speech language pathology. You're still really working to maximize a person's success to communicate. And that's what it comes down to in our field. So I know in graduate school, you have the camp of medical speech, graduate students,
Yes.
and then school speech graduate students. And
Yes.
it was just such a separate camp. I remember, and it was like kind of it wasn't like this forced overt thing to identify with either camp. It was like this subconscious, subliminal kind of like you're either a pediatric speech person, school speechy, or you're medical. And the medicals were always, at least in my program, they were always viewed as kind of more intelligent, smart, like elitist kind of, it's so stupid, but so I just wanted to be in that camp, I feel.
Yes.
And anyways, so again, from the get-go, I don't feel like our programs, our fields really promote what the schools have to offer us intrinsically as speech language pathologists, because even, and this is totally side caveat now, but even I was talking to Perry Flynn last spring, and I was asking him, because he's at Charlotte and UNC Charlotte, right? I think so. Anyways, but that program. And I was asking him, and I said, how many graduate students do you have graduating? He said like 30, 31, whatever. He said, okay, next question. How many are going into the schools? One. And I was like, wow, see, this really speaks to our struggle in the schools, public schools, I don't care what state you're in, to attract speech pathologists into the public schools, where we have all of these benefits to schedule all these things, and yet why aren't they coming to the schools? I know it's salary, I know that's a lot, especially coming out of grad school, you want to make money and whatnot. But then I also feel like it's this subliminal underlying, we're just not as respected if we go into the schools. I don't know. Anyways, that again, long-winded answer to your question.
No, I think it's relevant. Even for those of us who have just entered into the program, there's this trend, so to speak, in the discussion boards where you see that the majority would prefer the adult population in comparison to those who would prefer the pediatric population. And I think some of those who were maybe exposed to the pediatric populations by ways of, even though the scope is much different, by the ways of clinicals and the SLP assistant program, majority of us went into pediatric, went to the schools because that was comfortable. Even though we were, becoming more aware of the salary differences and things of that nature. So I think it's relevant. So when I'm asked the question now, thinking about the answers that I typically give, I always say, well, the school system it would be my first choice. But for me, it would be the same reason, because I still have children that are school age, and I want to be a part of those special moments that I'm never going to get back. So I think it is definitely more than just the salary that we have to look at. We have to look at our lifestyle and what works best for us. So I think that was great. All right. So let's see. When you were coming out of graduate school or nearing the end, what did the job search look like for you? Was it difficult to find work? Did you have jobs already lined up? How was that for you?
Again, so easy, and it will be for your graduating class as well. I mean, it's I got the job I wanted. There was only one other applicant that was really competitive with me. Other people applied, but it came down to me and her for my CFY position, which was at a hospital setting in Beaumont, Texas, and St. Elizabeth Hospital was what it was called at the time. I don't even know if it still is now, but so it came down to me and her. But then I also had applied for school positions, and I had applied for a variety of different jobs just in case I didn't get that quote dream job. And all of them I want to say, I don't remember now specifically, but I know I had multiple offers. So it wasn't a fact that I wouldn't have a job. It was just, did I get that specific job? For me, it worked out fine. I did get it. I had wonderful CFY supervisors, a great CF experience. I learned so much, still rely on a lot of that stuff today that I was trained on and mentored on when it comes down to just your clinical thought process and how you go about it, and taking the time to look at the big picture of people, and taking input from other team members to make your decisions. That's what I got so much out of that CF training and their philosophy as a speech language pathology department in the medical center. So yeah, tons of jobs, wasn't worried about it. It was definitely different from how y'all will be doing it. It was paper. We submitted a paper application, a paper resume, all of that. So that was different. Phone calls I did, and that's what it came down to, is what they told me, is how I got the job versus the other young lady. We were both new graduates, and it came down to I called more
Mhm.
to follow up on the interview, and then I sent a thank you letter for allowing me to interview. Now you'd send a thank you email or whatever, but I sent a thank you letter, and then I followed up like every probably 2 times or 3 times a week. I would call the lead SLP and just leave a voicemail and say, hey, this is Kim Baumgartner, just checking in to see if y'all had made a decision. I'm really excited to hopefully be a part of your team, yada, 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 all those kinds of things. So she said that's what it really came down to, because if we were equal on paper and on education and on everything, clinical experience, and she's, personalities and age and everything. So it really just came down to I called more, and that's what tipped the balance. So you just never know
Wow.
what's going to tip the balance. And I do encourage that line of follow up and communication for if you want that dream job, if there's a specific job that when you interviewed, you really felt comfortable with the team, the CF supervisor, the environment, and you're like, wow, that job is what I think I would want to do my CFY in. That's where you need to then focus your energy and follow-ups with, would be my recommendation.
Awesome. I think, all right, fellow classmates, log that in. I'm putting it into my noggin right now.
Yeah,
It matters. It makes a difference. You want to be more than just a name on another name on another application.
it
They need
really
to be able to
does. And
put a
even this
voice to it.
job, like when I left Cumberland County, I moved out here to the Smoky Mountains. Um, this is a very small community, and pretty much if a job opens, it's because someone retires or dies, and that's what happened. She retired, and so this position came open, and usually they hire locally, because it is such a very small community. And Western Carolina University is right here, and they have a speech program. It's literally like 20-30 minutes away. Um, so anyways, I have more experience, so that helped me get this job. But I do feel like it was the follow-ups with the EC director and the emails and that same pattern of just follow-up that helped me kind of solidify the job opportunity here. I don't know for a fact, but it helps. It definitely doesn't hurt. You don't want to do it every day. I'm not saying to be a stalker, but you don't want to be that pest. There's a balance.
Nice. So also log that into your noggin as well. Not a pest, but definitely show interest.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. So I think you answered that question. The next question asked, if any, what have your previous work settings been?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can put down hospitals, skilled nursing facilities, rehab centers, and then the schools, and then of course did the teaching at FTCC, and then I did a little bit of private practice too. So I had I think I did maybe a year or two, but when I say a year or two in private practice, it was like a contract thing. I would just kind of like pick up a kid here and there at a private practice in Fayetteville. So it wasn't like I didn't do that full time kind of situation. So
Okay.
pretty much
Okay.
I've done basically everything except for home health. That's one thing I never touched. Just
Okay. Is there any particular reason why, or just
no, just haven't done it. I mean,
okay?
I'm sure my job's not done, so maybe I will one day.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. So, in regards to your typical workday now, what what would you say? How would your typical caseload look? What does that look like?
Well, I have moved into a dream job, honestly, when it comes to the schools. This is not typical of most school districts model, and that's why I moved here. That's why I made the change. But I had the opportunity to because my kids are grown, right? And my husband can work remotely. So I had the opportunity to really look for a school district that I knew I was hoping was out there, and sure enough, it was. But so when I was in Cumberland County, the last couple of years, my caseload was insane. I had almost 150 kids on caseload. I did have a speech assistant, but at certain points, I would have between 5 and 6 schools. And it was just untenable. It was so incredibly difficult to know the kids, to know the families, to know the staff. At that point, it wasn't a team-based model for me intrinsically. It was on paper. You know, PT does their eval, OT does. You all meet as an IEP team. You do this IEP. So, quote, it's an IEP team decision. But the whole truly day to day, I was literally just floating in, floating in, floating in, going here, going here, going here, jumping to school, jumping to school. That's not how it started in Cumberland County when I first started, but then COVID hit and just it's a nightmare everywhere for a lot of people in a lot of jobs, not just the schools. You know, they talk about restaurants and every pilots, everyone's has a shortage because of COVID. But so now in this school district, so Cumberland County had 53 elementary schools. To put it in perspective, we have 6 in this county. Okay, so it's a very
Wow.
small county. There's one high school. No, I should say that 2 high schools, but it's totally different. So I only am responsible for one school here, one elementary school comparatively from before, and there's actually 2 full-time speech pathologists at this school.
Okay.
So our caseloads right now, I have under 40 kids. I'd have to look at my things. So right now I have between 35 and 40 kids. It's so manageable. Um, I know my kids, I know my teachers. I participate in the MTSS SST meetings. We have that every other Thursday rather. And literally I'm able to block that whole day out where I don't see any kids. So I'm not missing any kids. And that's what we devote that day to. So it creates this very conducive model to really serving the kids. And that is this district's philosophy is the children come first and what would be best for the children. And they really put the staffing behind that. Every EC teacher has an ECTA here that didn't happen in Cumberland County. And a lot of other big counties that doesn't happen in. Every K through 2 teacher has a full-time TA here. And then every 3 through 4, we're pre-K through 4 at the school, they have a floating TA. So like our upper grades and the other schools in Cumberland County, they don't even have TAs. It's like you're just on your own. It's so incredibly different. I can't even tell you. Like, it truly is fully supported. I mean, I I can't say enough about it. Am I busy? Yeah, but it's busy because I'm like actually seeing the kids and knowing the kids and doing
Right.
good service delivery and following up. And like yesterday, I made work task boxes for a little guy who's in the general ed, a little kid with autism in general ed. And, I would have never had time to do those kinds of things in Cumberland County, but it's like that follow through to really help the teacher be successful, providing all the visuals, really kind of doing a lot of augmentative kind of modifications to help him be more successful. That's our job. And before,
Right.
I really didn't have time to fully get into that in the last years in Cumberland County, just because of what COVID brought on. I really don't blame the county so much. It's just, it is what it is. Um, so yeah, but here I cannot say enough about Macon County schools. I've been so impressed, and it just reiterates itself. And at first I was like, okay, we're in the honeymoon phase. This is all just, the beginning. Look good and stuff, but it just truly is. I keep waiting for them to say, oh, you need to go to this school. Oh, you need to go to this. Oh, you need to cover this person. Oh, nope.
Mhm.
In fact, one of our people are going on maternity leave. They already have a contract SLP to cover her. And
Wow.
with like OT and stuff, it's just like, it's truly supported. So, and like, I'm in the EC wing here. All the EC teachers, we all work collaboratively with each other. It's just a great vibe. It truly reminds me a lot of when I first started out at St. Elizabeth at the hospital, where it was a really tight therapy vibe and you really work closely with floor nurses, and it was really collaborative to really get those rehab patients back home. That was the goal. So, yeah, so it's good. So,
That's awesome.
caseload is very manageable here. It's good. It's a good work environment. I have a huge room, tons of storage, tons of supplies. I have a closet full of test batteries, stuff I never even heard of. Like, they
Yeah.
just fully support you and supply you. So yeah, it's good.
Definitely things to look for.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I understand, as you had mentioned, that there's a need, in some of your school settings or settings in general that have less staffing or higher caseloads, but at the same time, you just kind of have to decide what's best for you and do what's best for you and best for the children, really. So.
Yeah, because what it came down to, as just to kind of help you guys as graduate students when you look for a job, ultimately, all of us, I feel, are type A's. We want to be successful. We want to
Yes.
do a good job. We want to see follow through. And when you're not being successful intrinsically, I don't need a pat on the back from my principal or rehab director and all that. I'm not that stroker kind of person. I don't need that and don't expect that because they don't have time for that. But intrinsically if you're being successful in your job just by your interactions with your kids. Do you know them? Do you remember
Mhm.
their face? If they were to say, John Smith at, what such and such school that you evaluated 3 weeks ago, and I say, I can't remember John Smith at such and such school from 3 weeks ago. I know I evaluated him, but there's
Mhm.
so much disconnect that they become just a name on a piece of paper. That's
Right.
not why any of us, I feel like, went into this field. And if you did go into this field for just the money, you're in the wrong field because you ain't gonna make the money. Not like you could in some other kind of field. Um,
Right.
but anyways, so yeah, that's what it comes down to is you want to put yourself in a position when you graduate and in your CF that you truly can be successful, and be part of a team and see the progress and know your clients, know your students, and that CF supervisor is going to be there to help facilitate and support, not
Mhm.
spoon feed you, but constantly they should be attainable enough that if you need to call them, call me back tomorrow, not necessarily drop everything and talk to you, but okay, call back in a timely manner, or meet with you, or do a Google Meet or something like that to help you work through some questions and things. Anyways, but those were definitely things to look for that I benefited from, and I strongly, strongly recommend that, because it's scary once you get out there on your own and you don't have that CF mentor that truly is supporting you. You
Right.
will feel at loose ends, and then you'll feel like a failure, and then that just snowballs into a hot mess, really.
I I'm taking notes. I really am. And you think of, in school, it's like, okay, I have this assignment, I have to get it done. But to see the method behind the madness, so to speak, it makes sense. This will serve as a really great resource to look at later, when my brain is kind of foggy and it comes to making a decision. I'm sure for other students who have the opportunity to view this video or read the answers, things to consider, different things to
Mhm.
consider, a plethora of things to consider, really. But
Yep.
it's worth it. It's great. So you discussed what your typical caseload is like in previous work settings, current work settings, and how you've transitioned. You've talked about other professionals that you've worked along with in order to have that collaboration, and really putting the child first, having that holistic approach. So, getting into the fun side of things, what does vacation time and holiday breaks look like for you now?
Oh, I mean, so again, to go back into the medical side, again, you get paid more, 100%, all of that, but you're going to be working Sundays. You might, you'll have a day off during the week and stuff, or you're going to be working Saturdays or whatever it is. You're going to be working Memorial Day week day. Like that's like, you don't even think about asking off for Memorial Day, let alone Martin Luther King and some of these other holidays that we get off in the schools. Um, you're you're going to be working again, like Thanksgiving. You might have Thanksgiving Day off, but you're going to come back and work that Friday after. So if you think you're going to travel to go see your family 4 or 5 hours away to go to grandma's house, no, you're not, let alone if you live out of state. So you really have to think about those things when you're going into these jobs. And if you think about them and you're saying, okay, I just want the experience, or I want the CF job, this is temporary for a couple of years, can I do it? Yes. Okay, 100%. But if you're thinking, okay, I'm going to work in this medical setting for 20, 30 years, am I that personality that's going to fit and make me happy? For me, I knew I became resentful of that kind of stuff. And then if you're lucky enough to have a department that you have multiple SLPs, then you do take turns. Like say 2020, you're going to work those days around Thanksgiving. 2021, maybe you'll get off. Then 2022, then Stephanie will get off. Then so you'll, like, they do it like that if you're lucky. But in the schools, girl, I live for my vacations. It is, they're just so functional. They're so, I am a traveler. Like I collect stickers, and then I'll sit in meetings and I'm like, okay, what national park am I going to go to this summer? Or what country am I going to go to? Whatever. I have 6 to 8 weeks, depending on, what days I want to take off to do all that kind of stuff, and to travel, or to go see family, or even, as you get older, like right now, my dad's going through some medical stuff and end of life stuff. So it's like, okay, I have long spurts to then help be that caretaker and do that part of the phase of my life that I'm in. So as you go on your journey in life, your life changes. And our school days end earlier than usually a normal hospital day. That's the other thing too. So even your school schedule, the flexibility of that kind of stuff, where you could make your if you need to leave for a doctor's appointment, it's easier to work a school schedule day out with your therapy where you could move some kids around versus, okay, no, I got to do this modified barium swallow at 2 o'clock because that's what time the radiologist has open that day or those days. So every day at 2 o'clock, you do 2 modified barium swallows. You ain't leaving work by 3 if you have 2 modified barium swallows, every day at 2. So you're going to be there till 4 or 5 o'clock. And that's just a given because that patient hasn't even walked out the door, let alone you cleaning up the room, writing the report, submitting it to the radiologist so they can write their report. Like it's just way, way different. So yeah. So, work-life balance, it just, of course, it comes down to you as a person. Do you want a family? Do you want to have kids? Are you going to be the main caretaker of those kids or that family? And what does your even life look like as far as where does the rest of your nuclear family live? Like your parents and your brothers and your sisters, your aunts, are they in the same city? Are they in the same state? So all those things play into your longevity of wanting to stay in that job, I feel like.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I think sometimes, not intentionally, but we paint this pretty picture of how everything's going to be. I'm going to have my dream job, and I'm going to have a family once I have my dream job, and I'm going to buy a house, and of course we know that life happens, and sometimes it's not. A lot of times it doesn't happen the way that we plan it. Similar to therapy, sometimes it would just snowball out of control, and you have to go with the flow and do what you need to do. But it's good to have that, to put that realistic those realistic scenarios out there, because those are also things that we need to consider. The fact that it comes down to us as people.
100%.
Yeah. Okay, so if you had to name a few things or just a thought that crosses your mind when I say, what is your favorite part of your job? What would you say?
Currently, honestly, I would say the kids and the employees here. Like, I cannot say enough about the teachers, the positivity, the principal here. She is present. She is constantly, like every morning, she's out there at car rider drop off and she's opening doors. Every afternoon, she's at car rider dismissal and bus dismissal. And she's, not, she might not be doing the doors, but she's supervising and just kind of like tracking things and just present, and they set the tone. Those managers set the tone, don't they? So yeah, the positivity and just creating this very warm school environment that the kids want to come to every day. Truly, it's just an amazing culture here. I can't say enough. We did get voted the best elementary school in our county this year by the local newspaper, or whatever that's worth. You know how that all goes.
That speaks volumes.
Yeah, but there's only 6 elementary schools, so they probably take turns every year getting voted the best. But I truly believe it, just not to say that Cumberland County didn't have great elementary schools and great principals. They did. But it's just so different. It's so different. It truly comes down to here, and I've always said this, that your last name represents you, and that's truly this mentality of the families here. And of course you have the same divorce rate, and you have the same separation rate, you have the same, single parent rate. All that stuff is still here. It's not some beaver cleaver, community by any means. Meth is huge here, huge. A lot of meth addict parents, and that's broken up a lot of families here. But it's still, even with them, they still put their kids as such a priority, and the expectations and the manners that these kids have here, that their last name represents them, goes a long way to just create this whole community of positivity and just wanting to do great. I don't know. I would say in a nutshell, the kids and the staffing here would be,
That's
it's just so
awesome.
different. Yeah.
So
It
if
really,
you had to, oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. No, you're good.
Okay, okay. Did not want to interrupt you. Um, so if you had to, you hear the bells, I'm
Yeah.
out of school.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, if you had to say something that you would what would you consider, I guess, your least favorite part of what you do right now?
So in Cumberland County, speech, we never had duties like morning duty, bus duty, afternoon car duty kind of thing. I have that here, but to just put it in perspective, I have it once every 3 weeks. Okay, so truly, it's really not a big deal, but it is a little bit irritating. I'm just saying. But I have to say, again, this principal, she makes everyone do duties. Okay, so it's not just support staff. Teachers have afternoon duties or morning duties, everyone does. So it's very equitable. It's not like how in Cumberland County, whoever had duties, it was like usually support staff and like the librarians and the music teachers, when I say those kinds of people. So it does, during that week, it does take like, it's an extra 30 minutes in the morning because I'm in the cafeteria then usually. And then, so that's out of my day. And then it's usually about 45 minutes in the afternoon. So that's out of my day. So that's time. And the only reason I get irritated is because that's a good chunk of time, 5 days a
Yes.
week, that now I'm not doing paperwork or prepping or getting ready for an IEP or something like that. But because it's only once every 3 weeks, you can plan for it. So to keep it real, but if I had to say something, it is irritant.
I love it. That's honesty. That's honesty. It's like it's not that difficult, but I could certainly do without. I
Yeah,
respect
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. I had to say something, and truly, that's what I have to complain about at this point.
Look, but that speaks
That puts
volumes
it in,
of where you are. It really
yeah, it puts it
does.
in perspective. It really
Yeah.
does. Yeah.
Okay. So currently, how much continuing education are you required to secure each year? And then how do you usually go about getting that continuing education?
So ASHA, of course, they say the 30 every 3 years or whatever it is. Honestly, I don't even know now because I do well above that.
Okay.
Um, we do a PLC, so professional learning community, once a month for speech. And that was the same in Cumberland County when I was there. So once a month you would meet and, it's usually there's an agenda and there's a purpose behind it. You're not just complaining about stuff, which sometimes those things can turn out to be. But for us, we're revamping our MTSS stuff here and across the state, really, but in this county. So that's kind of like the topic for the next one, which is on January 27th. Kind of going through that, and like every time we end, we all have things that we're supposed to get ready for the next one to kind of keep this moving forward. So, and that counts towards your professional development. And then every county is very good about offering professional development when they, as far as people coming in from DPI talking, or if there's things that come up in the area, they'll usually send out, hey, does anyone want to attend this professional development? Like I just went to one that Perry Flynn did over here through DPI in December. That was 8 hours. And then there's tons of conferences usually that your county will let you go to every year. Like there's usually North Carolina specifically, they'll have medical conferences geared towards medical, professional speech. Then they have like more of the school-based professional conferences geared towards like the EC side. So I've done those in the past, but in the nutshell, there's so many opportunities and so much of that you're constantly getting because things are constantly changing, that I'm always well above my ASHA requirements as far as the professional development. And then, of course, you can take it upon yourself to go to conferences too. And then ASHA has tons of stuff now online. Again, this virtual format has opened up a whole different avenue. When I first graduated, you had to go in person to conferences to get your professional development. Now, ASHA has all this stuff online that you can either watch it or attend virtually different conferences. If you can't go, say the ASHA convention nationally is in New Orleans. I don't even know where it is this year or next year. But you could attend it virtually now. That was never a thing back when I first graduated. So like I went to the ASHA one in Boston years ago. You had to actually go to Boston. You know what I mean? Like you couldn't attend virtually. So your world that you guys are going to enter is going to be so much more flexible to be able to get your professional development and do a lot of that stuff much easier. And anyways, but yeah, I never have a problem getting mine. And you guys won't either. There's so many opportunities out there.
Oh, that's refreshing. That's awesome. It's the way it kind of came about, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
But just really seeing the silver lining in it really is.
Mm-hmm.
I can see how it would open up a lot of doors to help us maintain um, our CEUs.
Mm-hmm.
So, what advice do you have for graduate students currently in this field or trying to pursue this area of work?
I think I feel like I've talked about that at length.
You did, but that's
Yeah,
okay.
so I won't drag that out anymore. Honestly, just I really, in a nutshell, I think you guys chose an amazing field. Same with occupational therapy and physical therapy, but we don't need our PhDs yet. So yay us, because that would have been a whole nother level of student loans and more education. And that's just I have a problem with that. Given the pay that we make, even in a hospital setting or contract, we don't make the money to offset that kind of student loan debt. To me, that's my personal perspective. Anyways, but the flexibility that we have as therapists, that you can go into any field, like I've talked about at length, and into rural communities, city communities, so much flexibility as your journey goes on. And just know that there is that flexibility and take advantage of it, truly. I mean, because you learn so much. Now, on the flip side of that, if you do stay in, say, a school district or a state, and you get into a situation where, okay, you've been in for 10 years, you've been in for 15 years, now you need to start thinking about retirement. Do you want to jump to another job and lose all of that? That's a huge thing to think about too. I know some of you are very young and you're not thinking about that, but it creeps up very fast, and you don't want to work till you're 70. I promise you, you don't want to work till you're 65. I promise you. So if you can hook in and start building that longevity for retirement, or if you jump to a new job, make sure that you're taking or that you get credit for that. So, like an example would be if you're in the public schools and you work for another state agency as a speech pathologist, because you're still working for a state agency in the public school system in North Carolina, you would get credit for those years of experience and those years of work. Because they're two different things, years of experience versus years of actual work. If you can tag both, that's how you get to retirement sooner. So, like, for instance, when I came to the public schools, I got credit for years of experience, but that doesn't go towards my years for retirement, if that makes sense. So,
It
like, they
does.
gave me 10 years of work experience, which increased my pay. But now that I'm at the point where I want to retire, they didn't give me the years of work because I wasn't working in North Carolina. They were in different states and it wasn't in the school system. So those are questions to ask because So as of now, how that translates is that I have 13 years in North Carolina public schools, but they gave me 10 years credit work experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't get those extra 10 years. So I don't have 23 years in with the state. Because if I did, I'd be retired, trust me. Because I'm just getting to my 20. All I want to do is get to my 20 because then I get full healthcare retirement. So it's like those kinds of things. You got to know what the different rules are when you're going into these jobs. So like a DOD job, DOD school job. Oh my gosh, if you could snag one of those, you go for it. They get paid good money, federal job, federal benefits. That's a whole different level. So yeah.
I'm writing that down.
No,
Note to
because
self,
especially
DOD.
especially if you're going to stay near a military base, if you could snag a DOD job and they hire those speech and you don't want to contract for them, you want to work directly for DOD and then start accruing that stuff. So yeah, you just gotta make sure you research the rules of the game is I guess my message to you, because you do want to retire. I promise you. You might think, it's so far away. No, it creeps up fast.
Well, I'll tell you what, these are the things that textbooks certainly don't tell you. So we thank you.
No, they don't. And it's the important stuff. It's why we're all working.
Right.
Anyways.
If you could choose it all over again, thinking about everything that we've talked about, would you do it again?
I would, but you know what I would change? Instead of waiting 2 years to work in the public schools, when I was talking to that lead SLP and I was like, I don't know. That would be 2 more years I'd have right now.
Valid.
So I do regret how long it took me to transition to the schools. And that truly came from my graduate school stereotypical view of what was put into me in graduate school from my peers, and even I feel like from my professors, not overtly, but they just, I guess I don't know, it's just the underlying message that when they would teach classes and things like that. I don't know. For me, that was the message I received. And so it really held on for almost 20 years.
Wow.
20 years. I had this speech school people were below medical. So it's a thing. And I feel like it's still a thing because when you go to conferences and stuff, I feel like it's still a thing,
Yeah.
But
I'm going to be honest. Although we're babies, still in the nest, trying to break out of the egg, but I can see how that could be a thing because you think medical setting, the jargon associated with that, you know what I mean? In comparison to, there's this, and someone said it to me as an SLP assistant, and I was a little offended. He said, I came home and I was tired, and he said, "Oh, you just played with kids all day,"
Right.
And you could get into the whole spiel of, the method behind the madness, but if you're not in it, would you truly understand? And so I tried to take that frown and turn it upside down and say, you know what? That's what makes my job beautiful. I do get to play with kids all day. There's a method behind the madness, and it's not the only thing that you're doing, but you are meeting them where they are, and that's a beautiful thing. If you're in a setting that you truly enjoy and you have those components that make it flow that much better, then why not see it that way? It's not work, it's play, I guess.
No, I agree. I mean, and now, again, looking back, like I've said, I'm very proud to work in the schools. I'm very proud to be part of this system and service that, is a huge part of our society and culture that, is undervalued and underrated in a nutshell, which of course, everyone knows that. But yeah, that I would do that part again, and that'd be 2 years closer to retirement. Not that I love my job, but I'm tired. I just, and And at that point too, when I get to my 20, will I work a couple more years? Honestly, I probably will, because at that point, then it's a choice, right? It's
Right.
not
That's right.
have to.
Well, man, we have
Anyways.
talked about so many things, and just I was jotting down nuggets for myself, but just before ending, I just want to share. And like I said, there's plenty more, but this just for me. Flexibility will be required. It will be required, but in that, also take advantage of the flexibility that's granted to us when that time comes. I see CEUs and transitions into different career areas and things of that nature. Take advantage of those CEU options now that we are at the place that we are. Um, know that each and every one of you, I think I should have said that first, you have worked hard to get where you are, and you are important, and you are intelligent, and you matter. And so be proud of where you are. Um, Consider your current life and where you want to be when considering your career choices. And also know that as life changes, that may change. You will hit different stages, and that will also include maybe your career choices. Keep ethics and morals in the forefront at all times. I think that's important. Um, I think that's, oh, I put DOD in big letters and some stars and a smiley face and all that good stuff, some glitter.
Yeah.
But
No.
really, the things that the textbooks do not share.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So absolutely. Yep. Now, so you're at Baylor in Texas then? Like,
yes, I am. Well, I'm online.
Program?
Yes, ma'am. I am.
Awesome. Well, I got my graduate degree at University of Houston, so we were right up the street from Baylor.
That's nice.
That was my husband's first job, was in Texas. So he worked in Beaumont, and then we lived in Baytown, which was like 30 minutes from Houston. And then I went to University of H. Yeah, but Baylor was right up the road from me.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, well, my dear. Well, thank you for this opportunity. And if you have anything else that, opens up down the road that you need help with, please reach out. I'd be more than happy to help you. And I'm so
sure will. Thank you so much. I sure will.
Absolutely. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. You have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.